capitalism has provided more opportunity for more humans than any other system of interaction. So yes, in capitalistic countries, there is poverty. But compared to what happens with socialist countries, it's a mountain with a molehill. But that's the great dangers. When many countries get prosperous, they see poverty and they start to say, well, we've got to provide things for everybody. You cannot do that. It's impossible. But when people get offered something for nothing, they will vote for that candidate. And of course, that's how socialism and communism in many cases takes root. They deceive people that they can provide a better system, a better life for the people under a system of socialism. It's a lie.
You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Lieutenant Colonel Jeffrey Addicott, welcome to the podcast.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for coming. We've done this once before, but I think we did a Zoom call.
Yes.
So it's nice to have you in the studio today. I appreciate you coming out.
Absolutely. When
I talked to you the other day, we had just plucked Maduro out of Venezuela.
Yes.
And so I said, who's the perfect guy to talk to? And I said, Jeffrey Addicott. So I guess my question initially is, I was watching a video Glenn Beck had done, and he talked about the strategic portion of getting involved in Venezuela as opposed to, some of the other countries. And so it was interesting because he talked about the oil aspect and how controlling that area really is going to impact some of the larger countries that are maybe not so friendly to us. Can you explain that a little bit better?
Sure. Obviously, cause and effect. And in this hemisphere, we have a responsibility not only to protect American interests, but also to ensure that our neighbors are prospering as well, because, it assists everybody. And Maduro, of course, and his predecessor, Chavez, they've fallen into communism, or socialism, as people like to call it today, and it's wrecked the country. Just as a sidebar, capitalism has provided more opportunity for more humans than any other system of interaction. So yes, in capitalistic countries, there is poverty. But compared to what happens with socialist countries, it's a mountain with a molehill. But that's the great dangers. When many countries get prosperous, they see poverty and they start to say, well, we've got to provide things for everybody. You cannot do that. It's impossible. But when people get offered something for nothing, they will vote for that candidate. And of course, that's how socialism and communism in many cases takes root. They deceive people that they can provide a better system, a better life for the people under a system of socialism. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It's not true. It's never been true. Every place that's tried it, it's collapsed because it violates basic premises about the nature of man. So as the Lord Christ said, you'll always have the poor with you. That's true. So in a capitalistic country, of course, our boast is not look at our prosperity, it's look at our freedom, because you lose your freedoms too. So it was just a horrible place to live. 8 million Venezuelans left when, and the country, of course, collapsed. And they have the most oil reserves of any nation on the planet, and yet they can't provide for their people.
Well, that's one thing that's interesting. So was Hugo Chavez the first guy to introduce communism or socialism to that area?
Well, he was the first one to take power.
Okay.
The idea is always around. It's around in our country today.
Sure.
Many people believe in it.
Yeah.
And, they're not deep thinkers. So Chavez took the country over with promises of greater prosperity for all the people. And they have all these empty promises, but they can't fulfill it. Because when the state takes over the operation of capitalistic enterprises, it always collapses. Look at our own post office.
Sure.
We're going to provide better, what? They never have. They never can. So, but it sounds good on paper, and that's the great problem. And of course, when many people see crooked capitalists, they assume, socialism is the way to go. No, capitalism does require virtue to be successful. Virtue means if I'm a business owner, and you work hard for me, I will provide for you more than any union ever could. I'll take care of you, take care of your family. That's a capitalist with virtue. A capitalist without virtue, they don't give a damn about people. I just want money.
Right.
So yes, it's true that if you have a lot of capitalists with no virtue, it causes misery. But on the other hand, socialism is inherently evil. There's never a time when it's good. And if you're a follower of the Bible, thou shalt not steal recognizes, you can take a deep breath, your right to own property.
Yeah.
And then the big 10, of course, strikes against a lot of woke people, which they said, oh, we want equity and equality. Well, that's also anti-biblical. The 10th commandment, or in the 10 commandments, it says you will not lust after your neighbor's property.
Yeah.
That's evil. That's not a virtue. Get a job if you want something, or get 2 jobs. So the Venezuela case, of course, is it lawful what we did? And that's, part of my hat as a law professor. Yeah, it's perfectly lawful. There was a warrant out for his arrest. That warrant existed during the Biden administration. There was a bounty under the Biden administration.
So was it issued under Biden?
Oh, well, it was issued, I think, under President Trump in his first term.
Okay.
But Biden put out the reward, and Biden recognized the legitimacy of that arrest warrant. President Trump simply executed the arrest warrant in a brilliant way. So the military, and then putting on my military hat, think of the word legend. That mission was a stuff of legend.
Yeah.
Because in the military, and I was the senior legal advisor for all the Green Berets, I've been involved in a lot of planning on these types of activities. You put the mock-ups there, you practice what you're going to do, how you're going to do it. And of course, when the mission starts, the fog of war kicks in and everything goes to I know is a Greek word. But in this case, it was flawless.
Yeah.
We got some rounds in a helicopter. There were some early reports. We had 2 wounded, but I can't confirm or deny those. But no casualties. Nobody's dead.
Yeah.
It went off, and that's a miracle, really. I mean, it could have gone bad in so many ways. And then it's always easy to 2020, but if it would have went bad, what would President Trump be? Oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're doing. You're just a wild man. As they did with Jimmy Carter when he tried to do the rescue operation for the hostages. It ruined his presidency.
Yeah.
Same with President Obama. Obama made a gutsy call when he took Osama bin Laden. And if that went wrong, because he was running for re-election, he wouldn't have got re-elected. So the commander-in-chief has to make these calls, and you pray that it goes well. But we do have, right now, we have a military that's unmatched, that even superior when I was in the military. Because during the Biden era, during the Obama time, I can tell you personally, there was not a very high morale in the military. We were losing people. Nobody wanted to volunteer because they didn't want to drink the Kool-Aid of wokeness and DEI. I said, I'm good. I'm just not going to join. Get somebody else. And the somebody else's that do join, they're not the people you want fighting wars. They couldn't beat their way out of a wet paper sack.
I think the last time we talked, we talked about DEI in the military. And it's interesting because a little bit of this makes me wonder, and you'll know better than what I will. Did we deviate extreme when DEI came in? Was there a huge deviation, or was there not that big of a deviation? Because it feels like very quickly we're back to being pretty badass in the military.
Yeah. No, I mean, we are. I mean, well, let me just back up a little bit. Everybody says, well, our Constitution has provided all this wonderful freedom for 250 years and prosperity, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, the Constitution is a brilliant document, but it's the people. You've got to have virtue in your people, or I don't care what the piece of paper says. It's virtue, as I indicated before. What is virtue? Doing the right thing in the right way. For example, I'm a law professor. It's the right thing to get an A on my exam. If you cheat and get the A, you did it without virtue. Therefore, you have no virtue. You study, you do a right thing, get the A in a right way, study hard, and then you achieve something. That's virtue. I see the greatest disaster in this country as we approach 250 is that virtue is shrinking. The people with virtue are shrinking.
Yeah.
Virtue is in the old generation, they wouldn't take a welfare check. I'm good. No. And if they did take welfare and got back up on their feet, they'd pay back into the federal government. My grandparents, my parents rather, came out of the Great Depression. They were hard as nails.
Sure.
Now, the generation we have now, they're soft.
Yeah.
And they would never think about it, like John F. Kennedy. Don't ask what your country can do for you. That's all they ask.
Yeah.
Gimme, 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 gimme. It's ask what you can do for your country. What a thought. That's virtue.
Yeah. So with Maduro gone, the vice president comes in.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody that was around his circle that is starting to fill the gaps in, they're communists as well. So how does that whole thing play out as far as what do you think we're doing as the United States trying to influence the processes there? Because is it a matter of more people going to have to get removed out of there? Or is it something where we can influence them to start playing nice, I guess, so to speak?
Well, let me back up a little bit because I'm going to lay a foundation. a lot of people, when they get into discussions, they assume, well, we just win this, there'll never be another war.
Sure.
We just settle this country, there'll never be another problem. There's always another problem. Every single human situation with nations dealing with nations, there's always a problem. Again, as the Lord Christ said, there's going to be wars and rumors of wars until I come back. He ain't back.
Yeah.
So whatever happens in Venezuela, we'll take it one day at a time, 1 week at a time. Right now, we're in a situation where her brother heads basically all the what we would call the secret police forces and all those other things. He's an indicted also.
Oh, really?
Criminal, yeah. And then the guy that's in charge, the second guy under him that's in charge, he's an indicted in charge of the military. So at least 60% of the people in charge are indicted by the U.S. government for engaging in narco-terrorism. Yeah. So they're indicted criminals.
Gotcha.
And so it's a tough cookie. Hopefully, President Trump, he's brilliant in terms of how he deals with humans, and he's not naive. He doesn't wear these little Pollyanna glasses. Oh, it's going to be wonderful. Democracy, will spring out. It's going to take some time because you're going to have to correct decades of corruption and a government that's collapsed and the people that are starving. That's not going to be overnight.
Yeah.
But the president, of course, wants the Venezuelan people to handle this by themselves, as we're seeing in Iran. The problem with dictators, they don't want to give up power, and they will do things in terms of brutality that's beyond our comprehension to maintain power.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they've got a sucking chest wound with the absence of Maduro because they're thinking to themselves, we could be next. So they're not cooperating right now because they like us. They're cooperating because they see the big stick.
Right.
And that's President Trump's foreign policy. It's very simple. In fact, he's a conservative. I'm a conservative. And for conservatives, life's not that hard. It really isn't. When you see people on the left that have conferences, and I've seen a lot of these, they'll have a banner that runs from one end of the room to the other, and you read the thing and it'll say like, the epistemological rehabilitation of social justice in the realm of climate, change and all sorts of slogans. What the hell are you people talking about? When we have a conference, it's God, guns, barbecue.
Yeah.
It's just not that hard.
It's a lot easier to understand.
So the foreign policy of all conservative leaders is walk softly or speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah.
If you're a democracy, we have a problem, we can talk to you. We can settle our differences. If you're a totalitarian regime, you can't talk to these people. President Obama, for example, sent in pallets of our cash, hard currency,
sure.
Almost $1 billion. We're going to talk to you, and you're going to, get rid of it. Are you that naive? Yes, they are.
Yeah.
A totalitarian regime, they respond to the application of violence, lawful violence, or the threat of lawful violence. That's all they respond to.
Well, let me ask you this, because Obama's not a dumb person, and I'm sure he had people around him that weren't completely idiots. Do they really honestly believe if they ship pallets of cash to Iran that Iran's going to participate and get along? Or what is the thought process there for a politician to send that? Again, it's cash. I think it was, I don't know how much he said
about
there.
$800 billion, I think.
Yeah.
Almost $1 billion.
And
in actual cash and on pallets.
There was pictures of it. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It's, again, you can have a high IQ and not be very smart. I can cure ignorance. I can't cure stupid. I've tried to cure stupid for decades as a teacher. Can't cure it. So I think he has a high IQ. Obviously, he made some good decisions, I indicated, killing Osama bin Laden. But his mindset was basically big government is better, and we can deal with people. He didn't approach reality as reality exists. And again, what is the truth? I guess you're probably asking me. The truth is, very simply, conforming your mind to objective reality. And if you can't do that, then you're delusional.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that cannot conform their mind to objective reality. Water freezes at 32 degrees. Oh, but that's not fair. It should freeze at 33. Okay, have a nice day. It doesn't.
Well, I guess, and I still have some questions on Venezuela, but and maybe we could do this backwards, but you know what? Let's stick in Venezuela because that's going to take me down a rabbit hole here in a minute.
Trump's using the big stick on him.
Yeah.
He's not using we're going to negotiate with you. He's using the application. And again, this is called deterrence. Deterrence in conservative minds is we can't fight everybody all the time, but you fight one of them And the other ones look over there and go, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's called deterrence. And deterrence is a wonderful tool if it works. Obama and Biden could not use deterrence because nobody took them seriously in terms of the application of lawful violence. They wouldn't do it. They backed down. Obama in Syria, I draw a red line. If you do this, something's going to happen. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
Biden, if you do this, nothing happened. The Russians went in. They do not respect people that do not understand reality, objective reality.
Yeah. It looks like, Andre pulled up, it looks like it's 1.3 billion.
Oh, it was about, yeah. See, I came in with $1 billion.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash. You know, one thing that I want people to understand is, and I think it was under the first part of Maduro's reign, I guess the inflation had gone through the roof. One thing that I saw online, I don't know how accurate it was, it said like 2 million% inflation. Because I remember several years ago watching videos, and people were going in dumpsters and pulling out just bricks of Venezuelan cash because it wasn't worth anything. And that's what, it's so interesting because when it first happened, I saw a lot of videos online of folks that lived in Venezuela or of Venezuelan descent here, ecstatic.
Yeah.
But yet you still had people on the left that were very upset that it happened. And I don't understand if people don't care, if maybe they're paid protesters. But it's when you have a society that is ecstatic because you remove somebody, and then you have a group of people in a country that's doing very well that says, no, that was bad, we need to put them back. That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. I mean, obviously, this is a free country. People can express themselves as they wish. But, part of the problem is there are people in this country that would not fight for this country under any circumstances whatsoever. They actually hate the country. They admire the People's Republic of Cuba. You've seen some of our movie stars go down there and smoke cigars.
How many college students have Che Guevara shirts?
And they don't even know who Che Guevara is.
They don't.
And so I cut them a lot of slack because you got to educate people. And that's amazing to me. We live in the freest society where information is available everywhere, and yet people are brainwashed.
Sure.
And I have a lot of parents come to me and say, well, my child went off to college and they come back having very strange ideas about socialism and they no longer want to study the Bible. And I said, look at them. I said, that's on you, dude. Don't blame the kid.
Yeah.
You've got to prepare your kid to go to many of these academic institutions because they're filled with information that, to me, conflicts with the standards I was raised with. But I always tell people, somebody's wrong.
Yeah.
Either they're wrong or I'm wrong. You choose and have a nice day. The problem on the left, they don't want to return the favor to conservatives. They want you to orient your thinking to them. To me, I'm a very liberal person. Do what you want to do, think what you want to think, but hear the other side, consider it, so you make an informed decision. But, when freedom of speech is based on consensus, there is no freedom of speech.
Right.
And they do not return the favor to conservatives. They want you to think like they think, talk like they talk, and if you don't, they will say bad things about you, and you're a Hitler, you're a dictator, you're a racist, whatever it is. They will not return that tolerance.
And that's what we were talking about earlier, Andre and I. I've always felt like I was a live and let live type person. And I don't feel like there's a lot of people that feel the same way,
Yeah.
And so it gets to the point where does somebody like me stand when that's how I want to live my life, but other people don't live that way. And so does that mean that I can't live that way anymore? Do I need to be a little bit more forceful in my thought processes and how I share information with people? Because, I was telling Andre earlier, I've talked to friends before, and it's kind of like, okay, if Andre's my son and we're watching TV and you say something that's just outlandish and I don't disagree with you or give you any sort of response back, Andre's going to think that's okay, because I didn't have an issue with it. And so I find that maybe conservative people need to be more vocal and take a stronger stand on how they view the world and things that they I guess, the way they live their life, kind of, so to speak, I guess.
Yeah, it's again, Alan Dershowitz, who is the former, dean at Harvard. Politically, we're on different spectrums, but I find myself, thinking like he thinks, and that is, freedom of speech, tolerance. And for that, of course, the left hates him now. He was the darling of the left at one time. But how dare you get on Fox News and say something nice about Trump? Well, you can find something nice to say about anybody.
Sure.
They can't be totally evil. I mean, do you support do you support lower taxes?
Yeah.
No, I want higher taxes. Okay, well, good. Then write an extra check to the government.
Sure.
Nobody's stopping you. Send that money in. So there's no perfect person. There's no perfect president. There's no perfect anything. Again, I guess I should use the caveat that the views I expressed are mine and not St. Mary's University.
Sure.
But one thing that's great about St. Mary's University is they're tolerant. They have all sorts of ideas on campus, and that's what universities should be.
Right.
You should have people on this spectrum and that spectrum and let them speak. As long as you're not advocating violence, conspiring to advocate violence or all that nonsense, you're just putting out ideas. And it's always a battle between ideas. And, our country was founded with two big groups. The vast majority of Americans actually didn't want to secede from Britain, but a strong minority did. But, so it's about freedom of speech, and that's one of the freedoms when I was in the military. I saw a lot of knuckleheads, and I'm
Sure.
expected to die for these people. Yeah, I would, because it's America.
Right.
It's the big, we're all family, familia. And so you might have members of your family that go, oh my golly, but it's in your family. So every American
Got a bunch of them.
yeah, is a member of my family. So I don't hate you. Well, why do you want to hate me? I'm in the family, dude. We have different ideas. Let's find common ground and, agree to disagree or whatever it is.
So with with our influence currently in Venezuela, what is the immediate impacts globally?
Yeah, so the media, obviously, things operate on energy. Energy is a huge
Sure.
issue. And people on the far left believe that windmills and solar panels can run everything. It's a lie. It's not true. You've got to have energy, and the number one energy right now is oil. I wish if I had my magic wand, we could produce energy that had no bad byproducts at all on the environment. Maybe someday we will, but right now, it's necessary, particularly in AI, or we'll lose the AI race to the Chinese, who are building coal power plants. At a rate that's incredible. Maybe you can pull that up, how many they built. But, didn't they sign the climate accords?
Yeah.
I mean, nothing to a totalitarian regime. They'll sign any piece of paper you want, and you can give me your pallets of $1 billion, and I'll say, have a nice day, and call you a sucker. So, yes, I wish that things were this and things were that, but the reality is...
There's an airport up here, by the way. I'm sorry about that.
The reality is we need energy. So Venezuela is sitting on the largest oil reserves. They should be one of the richest countries in the world, but communism has provided, its true colors every time. The people at the top living very well, and the rest of them are living like slaves.
Yeah.
So I think the ultimate goal is to restructure the country so capitalism can come back. Again, as I indicated, capitalism, God's a capitalist. He's not a socialist. Get a job, as Paul wrote in Thessalonians. Get a job.
Yeah.
Don't sit there with handouts and stuff, but it's very attractive to people that, if you're going to give them something for nothing, and that's what politicians do, we'll vote for you, and it cannot work. So whatever happens in the future, thank goodness we have a president at the helm that understands that, that capitalism is the way to go and to assist the Venezuelan people. Maybe, Machado would come back. I don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know what holds the future, but I think we've got a commander-in-chief that understands the nature of man, how to cut deals, and how to use deterrence. I'm very comfortable with him at the helm, personally.
Yeah. It looks like China has started construction on 94.5 gigawatts of new coal power capacity. It looks like that equates to roughly 90 to 150 individual plants, depending on unit sizes.
Yeah, the highest in a decade.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Oh yeah. So yeah, they again, that's what. Not all liars are criminals, because we all lie, but all criminals are liars.
Sure.
Same with totalitarian regimes. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear. I'll give you one quick story. When I was in the Pentagon, I was the deputy chief for the International Operational Law Division in the Pentagon. And so in 1995, we had Madeleine Albright come back waving a piece of paper in her hand. Oh, I cut a deal with the North Koreans. This is before they had nuclear weapons. They've agreed that they will not build nuclear weapons. All we got to do is give them some money, some cigars for the dear leader, and everything's going to be great. I thought to myself, the Clintons aren't dumb people. They can't believe they're going to keep their word because they signed a piece of paper. They've got to have something up their sleeve, the Clintons, that is. And then 5 years later, the North Koreans set off a nuclear weapon, and all the folks on the left were shocked. Oh, my golly, they lied. You think?
Yeah.
They murdered their own people. And yeah, of course they lied. That's part and parcel for a communist totalitarian regime. they'll tell you whatever you want to hear. So who's the fool?
Yeah.
You are, for signing the treaty and giving them money, as Obama was with the Iranians. I'm going to give you $1 billion and you're going to keep your word. He actually contributed to a lot of human misery because that kept the regime in power longer than it should have stayed in power.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Good job.
That's very true. When you think about it, that's very true. You know, and I think one thing that kind of irritates me when I see people, on social media and just, across the board talking to each other about what's going on. There's this idea from half the country that feels like anything that we do as the United States in another country is us bullying and over-influencing areas that we shouldn't be in. But can you help explain that to folks? If we weren't involved in Venezuela, China and Russia are.
Oh, yeah.
And they, a lot of people, I don't know that they don't educate themselves enough to understand that it's not a matter of us bullying our way into something. There's a vacuum there or actually somebody else has already filled that spot, and we don't want them in our hemisphere.
Yes. Again, there's always crime in society. There's always going to be wars or rumors of wars. So the solution, and again, this is the same mindset. I'll go back after World War I. After World War I, horrible war, we must stop war. We must never do this again, the imperialistic powers and all the nonsense. So our solution is we'll just disarm, and there won't be any more wars. Germany signed the paper. Japan signed the paper. The Kellogg-Briand Pact, the London Naval Treaty, we disarmed. The Western powers disarmed. And then certain independent journalists, because you're not going to get this in the mainstream media, hey, the Germans are rearming. The Japanese are rearming. Oh, they wouldn't do that. They signed a piece of paper. And boom. So yes, if you're a student of history, the way to stop wars is to be strong.
Right.
Have a vibrant military. That's what keeps totalitarian countries in their cages. If we were really an imperialistic power, as people on the far left always say, well, Kuwait would be our gas station right now. Mm-hmm. We would never have given it back after we liberated Kuwait.
Yeah.
We would never give back the Panama Canal. We would never do all these things. We are not an imperialistic power. But if you look at the rise and fall of nations, everybody you look at, wherever you stand, there's been some country that has overtaken another country or another people. That's just life.
Right.
So where we're sitting right now is United States of America. You go back in time, not too long ago, it was, let me go back in my brain here. It was the Confederate States of America. And then before that, it was the United States of America. And before that was the Republic of Texas. And before that, it was Mexico. Before that, it was Spain. And before that, it was Comanche territory. So when people say, this is our land, well, what we do in the modern era legally is we look at the nations as they are since the United Nations Charter. That's your starting point. We don't care who you used to be back in the old days and what the borders were. That argument goes on and on and on and on.
Sure.
Today is, do you have a little card at the United Nations, Israel? Do you have the right to exist? Yes. So Venezuela, of course, was playing a dangerous game. They were courting the Chinese. They were courting Hezbollah. They were courting the Russians. And under the Monroe Doctrine, we're not going to allow our adversaries to have a foothold, right at our back door. And that doctrine's been around for a very long time. It's just that no one really has enforced it. So President Trump, whatever you say about him, he actually does what he says he's going to do.
Yeah.
Now, politicians will talk the talk, but so those that voted for him are very pleased that he's doing what he said he was going to do. You can't be surprised.
Yeah.
But is he lawful in what he's done? Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people, I ask you these questions because I have people in mind who I'm friends with that I'm asking questions so that they can understand how I feel, because a lot of what you say, I agree with completely. I'm just not great at articulating that to them. But a lot of people see him making comments towards Colombia, Cuba, and even eyeing Greenland.
Yeah.
So if somebody's on the other side looking at this going, look at us, we're invading everybody.
We're bullies.
We're bullying folks. Yeah. How do you explain those moves or lack of moves in some cases, but how do you explain that strategy to folks that disagree with it?
I have a hard time winning anyone that wants to argue that Trump has a penchant for hyperbolic language. That's a fancy word to say that he has a arrogant bone in his body, and he says weird stuff, I can't disagree with you. He says some stuff that I say, what the world are you talking about? He's inartful, he's abrasive, he's brash. All that stuff is true. But I say to people, look at Trump with your eyes and not with your ears, and you'll be all right. What is he actually doing?
That's a good way to put that.
Yeah, but I can't argue with you that he's not somebody that I would say this is one of my, best friends and it's a model for my kids to follow.
Sure.
No. But I don't need a savior. I've already got a savior. And I just look at what he's done.
Right.
And that's what I encourage people to do because, you win the argument when he says stuff. If you watch that movie, My Cousin Vinny,
oh yeah,
where you had the two kids from, he's a New Yorker.
Yeah.
And I'm from the South. And so the police officer's down there with the two kids. The clerk was shot at the convenience store. And the one kid says to the police officer, I shot the clerk. And when you inflect your voice, if you're from New York, that means no. But the police officer just write down what you said. I shot the clerk. I got a confession. They don't talk like we talk.
Right.
And so, yes, Trump also is a businessman. He knows when you're negotiating, he takes an extreme position, but he'll settle for something in the middle.
Right.
He doesn't start out in the middle, something reasonable, because he knows I'll have to settle. So he'll say stuff like, we're going to take Greenland one way or the other. He doesn't really mean that.
Right.
Calm down, people.
Right.
Look at his past track record. He hasn't engaged in, his actions have not been dictatorial or as a warmonger. But he does make these things, like we're going to take Panama. When he first came into office, we're going to take it back. Well, the Panamanians immediately kicked out the Chinese. He was doing that as a negotiating skill.
Explain that a little bit too, because I remember that conversation.
Yeah, we're going to take Panama back.
Yeah.
And people say, well, you can't do that. You can't do that.
So was China kind of influencing that area, or were they running it?
China has a Belt and Road program where they're putting their tentacles throughout every country in the world, from Africa to Latin America. The Chinese, they will tell you, our goal is to conquer the world. They're one of those totalitarian regimes. They're a communist entity. They're not the cuddly panda bear. Their goal is to conquer the world. And they make no bones about it. That's not our goal. Our goal is to live and let live. We look out for American interests. We want our people to prosper, and we want your people to prosper. So when they tell you they're going to take over the world, you got to kind of take them serious. And so they're trying to, get a foothold and to, they see us as the number one enemy, and they are our number one adversary. But we're tied to them at the hip with the economic issues. The only reason China has not taken Taiwan is because if they do, then that will break the economic hold. And Trump wants to tie countries together economically, because if you hate us, that's good, but you still got to do business with us.
Right.
That's what he's trying to do with Ukraine and Russia, to sew in economic issues so that even if they don't get along, the dollar and the economic benefit to both sides will keep them from going to war. Trump is a genius at that. He's done that all his life. He's made some crooked deals. I'm not saying he's a perfect person.
Sure.
No such thing. But on the great, if you look at the big picture of it, he's advanced American interests. I mean, I predict we're going to have a GDP of 5 to 6% next quarter.
Wow.
And people, they always predict doom and gloom. Mm-hmm. The tariffs are going to cause a recession. No, it didn't have the exact opposite effect. We brought in billions of dollars into the economy. Taxes are lowered, borders secured. Iran has been defanged. It's hard to find an area that he has inserted himself into that has not been prosperous for the vast majority of American people. Even those people that hate him will benefit.
I thought it was I laughed. I thought it was funny. The other day he had made a comment, I guess to Russia and China, saying, hey, if you need oil, we'll sell it to you. Yeah. Hey, we're open for business.
Well, yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I met President Trump. I spoke to him. I had about a 5-minute conversation with him one-on-one. Very affable fellow. In my conversation, we talked about, legal issues, of course, jurisprudence. But yes, I agree. Don't listen to him with your ears, folks. Just look at what is happening, because that's part of baked into him.
Yeah.
Is that I'm going to do a deal. I'm going to go to the extreme position, get them all excited, but I'm willing to come back into the middle. And he'll meet and talk to anybody. I mean, he met with Mondami, the self-proclaimed socialist that's out to destroy New York City, in my opinion.
Sure. It's interesting because there's a lot of people that look at Donald Trump and think very negatively about him. One of the comments, and it's an ignorant comment, and I think that a lot of people that make it don't understand his past. But I think there's a lot of people that also make these comments that want to hide his past, in the sense that they'll say, well, he's a TV star, he was in WWE, and they ignore the fact that he did business in New York for decades.
Oh, yeah.
And he knows how to talk to people.
Yes.
And I'm sure, I don't know, I wasn't there, but I'm sure he's had to have interactions with the New York mob and other, elements that ran portions of New York to even do construction or business in those areas.
Oh, yeah.
So he understands how to make a deal with somebody. He understands shady folks.
You're right.
He knows how to talk to them.
You're right.
And that's one thing that I think is probably a superpower. It's funny because you were mentioning the way he talks, my cousin Vinny deal. During his first term, I remember Joe Pag saying, Trump had said something, and Joe Pag says, he's a New Yorker. That's how we talk. He says, you crack on us, we're going to crack right back immediately.
Yeah.
He says, that's just how we are. Yeah. And it's funny because when you think about it that way, and you kind of say, okay, this is where the guy's from, this is how he was raised and how he cut his teeth in business. Okay, that it makes sense of what he does. And you're right too. Like a lot of times he'll say, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do this thing. But he has no intention of doing that. He's looking, like you said, to land in the middle.
Yeah.
And I can't land in the middle if I don't drag you to the right a little bit.
Yeah. Because then you feel you got something, I got them to pull back, and so each side gets something. That's the best deal, where each side feels that they have achieved what they want.
Yeah.
So, he can be petty and reach down to little people here and say, things that are, as a Southerner, I try to be a gentleman, and act in accordance with that. And, again, I just look at what he does. So
Sure.
I can't win the argument that he's abrasive and has all these nasty traits. Okay, you got me there. But I'm looking at what is he doing for the American people?
Let me ask you this: when people protest here, the United States has a protesting population. It seems to be the same population every time there's a protest.
Yeah.
And then you see the protests happening in Iran. People sometimes want to make that connection between the protesters here and the protesters there. How do you distinguish the difference between the two? And how do you explain to somebody, maybe there are similarities, but when I see protesting here and I live here and I kind of get some of the back history, I don't always agree with it. I agree with protesting. I agree. I love honorary things.
Yeah.
But sometimes I go, the leg you're standing on is the wrong leg. But then you see things happening where, like in Iran, and you see things changing, and you go, okay, that might be something I support a little bit more. How do you explain that to folks, the difference between that type of protest and what we see here?
So most of our protests are anti-establishment. They're against the standard concepts that made this a great country. Many of them, when you see people interviewing, why are you here? They don't even know why they're there. They have signs that are painted there. They just want to get out and protest. Black Lives Matter, we're there. Antifa stuff or Occupy Wall Street. And there are a certain bunch of people that just do not like this country. And they will latch on to anything they can to try to downgrade America. We shouldn't be this, we shouldn't be that. And that's your right to do so. But when you engage in violence, that's where you've got to really draw the line. And part of the rhetoric that we're hearing from our leadership, because these people just don't, they're spun up by people in power that say the most, hateful rhetoric. And you've seen them, and most of them on the left. They're members of Congress, members of the Senate, and they say very vile things.
Oh, they've been riling people up for years now.
Yeah, and there's a certain number of people that they respond to that, and they see that as a license for them to actually go out and do violence. If you say, Trump is Hitler, ICE agents are Nazis, and they know that's not true. I hope they know that's not true.
Well, they've even done speeches. I've seen Democrat politicians where they've done speeches that talk about finding politicians in the streets and getting in their faces and yelling at them.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's like, for somebody that doesn't go deep into their thought process, when they see their politician that they voted for telling them, hey, it's okay to act like a fool, they're probably going to go act like a fool.
Yeah, and you see a lot of these people that have engaged in assassination attempts, they carve those slogans onto their bullets. So they're being influenced.
Sure.
And I think, politicians have a duty to kind of calm things down,
right,
and not to engage in hate rhetoric, And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've been around the planet for a while. I've never seen the type of hateful rhetoric that's out there. And it's not even logical. But yeah, there's a certain number of people that, again, they're not people that adopt conservative values. They're people that believe that the government's the solution for everything. America's an evil force. Apologize for America. We're imperialist. We're this. We're that. And they just, they do not like the foundational roots that made us a great country. As we approach 250 years, yeah.
We're a young country. That's what people need to understand as well.
Well, we're young, but the average lifespan of great countries is really only about 200 years. They collapse.
Oh, really?
And you know why they collapse? Look up Francis Tytler. Great nations collapse because they flunked the prosperity test. Not adversity doesn't cause you to collapse. It's the prosperity test. Everything's here, and you forget where it comes from. And therefore, you demand more. And of course, you kill the goose that laid the golden egg, which is capitalism, and there's no more coming.
Yeah.
So great nations, they actually flunk the prosperity test. They just think, well, I turn on the light switch and there it is, I got power, and we're just going to now convert to windmills, and I'll always have power. No, you won't. They can't provide what you need to live.
Yeah.
But they're disoriented to reality.
Let me ask you this: Is it as simple as? Is it just capitalism and communism? Is that what we're looking at?
Well, again, there are four pillars really that if you look at what makes a great nation, all great countries have been associated with capitalism, and to a certain degree, I would say they recognize the sanctity of the nuclear family. That's where kids are raised. But people on the left, they want the school system to raise your kids. Little Hitler youth camps where we can take those minds and train them to hate America. We're an evil country, and racism is our roots and all this other stuff. And so they want to get a hold of your kids. So it's the family's obligation to raise your kids. We had to deprogram our kids when they came home from school. We told them who Americans, heroes were. We told them the virtues of capitalism, God and country. But many families don't have those roots. So when you destroy the nuclear family, the nation will collapse.
Yeah.
In fact, to quote Light Horse Harry Lee, who was Robert E. Lee's father, he was the chief cavalry officer in George Washington's army. He was a scoundrel, but it doesn't mean that you can't say good things even if you're a scoundrel. And he said, he was a very brave soldier, but he was also a scoundrel. But he said, when virtue is absent from the people, the nation will collapse. And virtue is doing the right thing in the right way. Again, you can apply that to dating, to business. You don't cheat people. You don't ask for handouts. You want something, you do your own. But see, that's the work ethic, and that's a vanishing thing. And if you don't work, they expect to get it on a silver platter. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So, and back to your original question, the difference between rioters, these people that are protesting, I wouldn't call them protesters because they're actually engaging in illegal activity. They don't get the permits to protest. They just go do it. And the
Right.
police don't. If you try to do that in Iran or a totalitarian regime, you'd last about 5 seconds. So the people in Iran, they're actually very brave people because they're getting killed. Mm-hmm. Protesters in here, you had the one woman that was shot in the head because basically, if you look at all the films from all the different angles, people spin it the way they want to spin it. From a legal perspective, that officer had every right to use his service revolver to stop that woman driving a car that struck him. You can't predict where that car is going to go. You can't read her mind. And she disobeyed orders to get out of the car. And what do you think's going to happen? So no, that was perfectly lawful. It was a lawful killing. It's tragic. But in a totalitarian regime, there would be a lot of people. They wouldn't be allowed to do these things, not out of the gate. So in Iran, these are brave people. We don't know the true numbers, but I would say it's well over 200-300 that are being killed.
Yeah.
Because totalitarian regimes, they take away the guns from the people. So you can't fight for your freedom if you have to. And they deprive you of freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of movement, very deplorable lifestyle. Nobody wants to live like that. And the reason they live like that is because they're afraid.
Right.
The government, so the people in Iran, they're true heroes. They're fighting for freedom. I see people on the left here, they're fighting for the collapse of our nation. The way I look at it, that's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I've talked to a lot of them. And all of them have the same song. We don't like America, what it boils down to. What don't you like? We don't like capitalism. We don't like traditional values. and on and on and on. Okay, well, that's good.
What happens when you have a society that's so split like that? I mean, without going into civil war at some point, like, can a country stay together when they're that divided?
Well, there's a tipping point. So when I was in the military, again, we've got bad apples in the military. We call them dead weights, cot slugs. They sit in the cot, pretend they're ill when everybody else is marching and doing stuff. Oh, I
Cot
can't, my
slugs,
back,
that's
whatever.
good.
And so, we also train. You have a rucksack on your back, and you put 80 pounds on your back, and you march for 5 miles, 7 miles, and the rocks are dead weight. So we've got a lot of dead weight in this country. Anyone that's against capitalism, you're dead weight, because you want something for nothing. That's not reality, my friend. If you're against strong borders, you're dead weight. The nation will collapse. You can't open up your border to allow anybody from the world to come in with no consequences.
Weak borders.
And then you pay their free health care when I don't get free health care and I'm a U.S. citizen, free education. Are you insane?
Yeah.
Dead weight. So when the dead weight increases and they don't recognize that America, with all her faults, is the greatest country the world has ever seen in providing prosperity to the maximum number of her people and freedoms that other nations can only dream about. People that object to that, you are dead weight. We've got to carry you on our backs. We can carry so much, but when the weight's too much, we will collapse. The nation collapse. When virtue is absent from the people, not enough to carry the dead weight, we will collapse.
Yeah. One thing that kind of stuck out is, again, I told you earlier, I've always been kind of a live and let live kind of guy. And it wasn't until recently that I started paying more attention to communism, because I feel like communism was more, it almost seemed like it was becoming more acceptable to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
And so one thing that's interesting, and I did a little research, I have to send you the picture because I put them together, but it kind of blew my mind that there were communist parties in the country. Yeah. And so I did a little research, and I found one in New York. And one thing that I found super interesting, and I'm not trying to be conspiracy theorist or whatever, but there was a banner on the New York Communist Party website, and it was in red and white, and it said "Forward." And I remember seeing that, going, I've seen that before. And it was interesting because on the little placard that goes in front of the podium where Obama would speak, it said "Forward." And I remember thinking to myself, that's an awful funny connection there. And so I started paying more attention to it. And I think there's even one in San Antonio. There's a Communist Party website. And so I went to that website, and it's very interesting because they show you communist-associated political folks who are running for office. So basically letting you know who to vote for, events that are going on. And I don't ever remember, and maybe I was just naive to it, but I don't ever remember it being so openly acceptable to talk about. And I get young kids, and I'm going to be 50. I get the younger folks always want to do opposite of what their parents are doing. But it's interesting because when you talk about socialism, and here's what's funny is socialism leads into communism, or are they just the same thing? Because you talk about the virtue thing. It's hard for me to imagine my nephew just graduated. Somebody telling him, hey, man, you want to live for free? You want free groceries? To him, he doesn't understand that if I accept this free thing, I can only have what they're going to give me, and it may not be the same thing for the rest of my life. It may deteriorate, it may be less, it may go down, but man, it sounds appealing. It sounds appealing to not have to work hard and sleep late and play video games, and all my rent's paid and groceries are showing up. How does somebody who wants to push capitalism explain that to a 23-year-old, 24-year-old and say, you gotta, this is coming from a fat guy, dietary advice, but you gotta have your vegetables. You can't only have your candy and your dessert. But people rather have the dessert. They rather have the free handout. They rather say, you know what? Yeah, I live in a little studio apartment with a whole bunch of other people, and there's a lot of crime here, and our access to food is got a lot of junk inside of it. It's not really pure meat or vegetables, and we're not eating the best things, but it's better than nothing. There's a lot of people I feel in this country that are happy with better than nothing.
Yeah, it's Margaret Thatcher once said, socialism's great until you run out of other people's money.
Yeah.
Because that's the key, is who's going to pay for all this stuff? There is no such thing as a free lunch. And then when I get into an argument or discussion with somebody that advances, it's anti-capitalist, I say, well, show me one example where socialism has ever worked. Just one. I'm not greedy. Just show me one. I can show you lots of examples where capitalism has worked fine until it was infected with
Don't they like to
virus.
talk about Sweden or something?
Yeah, because, Sweden, the reason it works in Sweden is one reason is after World War II, we provide their military defense. So they don't have to put the money into the military, and they can divide that up for the people. So it works to a degree. So it's a slow death, as Margaret Thatcher said. It works great until you run out of other people's money. But it will collapse at some point. It always does. So, yeah, if you don't have to pay for your own defense, where Uncle Sam, the United States, and Trump is one that made them commit to 5%, other presidents, they just let them get away with it. We've been subsidizing them so they can run more social programs because we provided for free their military strength. And, for free, we had to pay for it.
So the American taxpayers are...
American taxpayers pay. In fact, the greatest
Gotcha.
transfer of wealth went from us to, Middle Eastern countries and from us to China. So, you've got to accept reality as it is. As my great-grandmother once said, I remember talking to her, she was, her dad was a Civil War veteran. She said, honey child, you can spit in one hand and wish in the other and see which one fills up first. Mm-hmm. So if I was a politician, as someone that believes in the founder's principle, my platform would be running for office. I will give you nothing. I'll increase, I'll fill the potholes, make the streets better, but I'm not going to give you free health care. I'm not going to give you free education. But my opponent would say, I'm going to give you free health care, free education. Sadly, the way human nature is, most of the knuckleheads are going to vote for that person, not for me.
Because you're offering vegetables and he's offering dessert.
I'm just offering what will give you freedom.
Right.
But they don't realize that you're selling your soul for a mess of pottage. So how do you get these values? Your parents have to instill them into you because it's against the nature of man. People are infected with an old sin nature. You're going to give me something for nothing, I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to resist that. It's called virtue. No, I don't want it. I don't want your help. I will do it myself.
Do you think the middle class is in trouble in this country?
Well, it always goes back and forth. And that's part of the genius of our founders is we don't like to get whiplash. From Biden to Trump, you've gotten whiplash.
Sure.
I mean, and when Biden came in, he undid all the good that Trump had done. Signed these executive orders, open up the border, basically, let 10 million people, who knows the number.
Well, it was 12 o'clock. I paid attention. It was noon on his inauguration day, and he got rid of the Keystone Pipeline.
Oh, got rid of the key. All the jobs, we're for jobs. We'll just get rid of all those jobs because oil is evil. Okay, good job. Disorientation to reality. When Trump gets in, he does the exact opposite. So the next election, you get someone that goes to the other extreme. You can't live like that, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And a big problem on the horizon is what we have in our Senate. Right now, you got to get 60 senators to agree before a bill goes forward. In the Biden administration, they came this close to making it 50 senators, 51, which means they could put in legislation that is absolutely, disoriented to reality. And if that occurs, you talk about whiplash. But it's always a political food fight. It's, power lust is in mankind. Politicians have big doses of power lust on the right, on the left. And so this is, people say, when will this end? Never. It's a constant battle of ideas. And there are those that, for example, in the Supreme Court, you have originalists. They want to know what the founders thought when they wrote the document. And you have living constitutionalists. They don't care about the founders. They substitute their own view of what they think is good, and they're called living constitutionalists. They might find your right to marry a goat in there someday. Oh, it's right there in the Constitution all along. Where an originalist like Clarence Thomas, you hear people say, well, the death penalty is unconstitutional. You hear that all the time. Really? Well, if I'm an originalist, I go back in my time machine, and I would ask the founders, when you wrote the amendments to the Constitution about cruel and unusual punishment, did you mean the death penalty? They would say, of course not. We meant that the state can't crucify you or burn you alive. But see, a living constitutionalist, they take that same language and say, well, civilized nations, they don't do the death penalty. We don't care what the founders thought. I'm substituting my view of the world, and therefore the death penalty is unconstitutional. That's the big battle here. The genius of the founders, which you pledge allegiance to that gave us this great nation, or your idea. But the living constitutionalists, it's the devil's playground. They can find anything in that Constitution that they want to find and justify it. Oh, it's been there all along. And so you might say, well, I like living constitutionalists, but you won't like them if they, you can't anchor it to anything. They come up with this, human rights and all these other things. And a lot of it's washed in socialism.
Yeah.
And it's not not going to work.
Let me, do you think we can avoid becoming one of these countries where the middle class is gone and we have the extreme rich and the extreme poor? Do you think we can avoid that in the next?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
No nation has sustained itself. They all collapse.
Yeah.
And we will collapse at some point. We might break into 4 countries. We might break into 2. We might be overtaken by another country. I'm amazed we've lasted this long, quite frankly. But I do see, for the next 3 years we're going to last. Every election is, it's people got to get out and vote.
Yeah.
And how about this idea? Let's have ID verification. There's one political party that doesn't want voter ID. Why don't you want it?
Yeah.
So we can cheat, basically, is the untold saying. No, let's have people get out and vote. Involve yourself in your community, because I still think there's enough Americans that have common sense that can overtake the people that are, in my opinion, dead weight.
It's funny. I've had conversations with the folks, and I'm sure we learned it at some point in high school, but there was a time where I remember Gavin Newsom saying, hey, send your homeless to California. We'll take them. Yeah. And I remember hearing that going, that's crazy. Why would he say that? And it never dawned on me that your population dictated your Senate seats. Even if they're illegal, it's how many people are in your country. Yeah. And when it's so interesting, because when you see something that's mind blowing, there's a reason it's mind blowing. Yeah. You just gotta do a little bit of research and figure out why. So that's a whole nother mess, and I'm sure he's running for president.
The whole point of discussion, as I indicated, my personal views, capitalism, founders' principles. So either I'm wrong or the other side's wrong. We're both not right.
Right.
And as long as you can realize there are 2 sides to the argument, a lot of problems I see with our young people is they don't realize the other side. They never hear the other side. They just hear one side. A lot of my critics, they go, well, Addicott, in your lectures or whatever, you never give the other side. And my answer is, I don't need to give the other side. You live in it.
Sure.
You've never heard my side, where the death penalty, for example, is lawful, biblical, and wonderful.
Yeah.
That's how you should operate to deal with criminals that deserve the death penalty.
Right.
You don't hear the other side that capitalism is wonderful. You just hear, it's evil. Those evil people are making money. Well, yeah, there are evil people that are billionaires. There's evil people that are poor, dirt poor. But I know one thing. I'd rather get paid by a rich man because he can pay me.
Right. Yeah.
The promissory note is just not going to work.
I know we got to wrap this up here in a minute, but I wanted to ask you, it came out after Biden's administration that a lot of what documents, and who knows how many documents were signed without a PIN. Yeah. I'm sure there's a way for them to analyze the signatures and find out what was signed via auto PIN. Can anything be done about that? Or are they just going to say it's not worth tracking it down? There's 1,000 other things for us to do, and just poo-poo on the idea of even trying to run that down?
Yeah, that was the American people saw what was going on with our eyes.
Sure.
A lot of the mainstream media said, no, he's fine. He's sharp as a tack. He runs circles around me. And we're like, what? And then so when you hear these same media outlets criticize Trump for, having dementia or whatever, what are you people talking about?
It's night and day, the two.
It's night and day. So, you've got to get your news sources from a variety of outlets like your podcast, other people that have, have voices that need to be heard. So I don't think they're going to do anything about it, but there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of crooked activities that goes on. There's crooked activities in the Trump administration. I'm not Pollyanna. But for the good of the country, it's probably better to TTP,
Yeah.
which is turn the page. That was an error that was done, and let's move on to the next one. But I do worry about lawfare. What happened to President Trump was clearly an abuse of jurisprudence at almost every level, mind-boggling. And even people that knew better, they just went along with it anyway because they hate Trump. Therefore, we can, it's like the communist system. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. That's not how it works, dude. You do a crime, and then we pursue the crime. For example, you point me to any human on this in Texas, I will find a crime. I don't care who it is. Like you're driving in here today to the podcast. If it says 25 miles an hour, if I find that you did 26, I got you.
Right.
So that's not the way the system should be. So you point at President Trump, yeah, you can find a crime. You didn't sign a piece of paper, didn't dot a thing on a loan application that nobody got hurt, but we're going to charge you, we're going to make a misdemeanor into a federal offense with a far left judge in New York. And the jury, of course, from that pool, they're going to convict Trump of anything. And they picked that jury for a reason. But reasonable people knew what was going on.
Can you explain that a little bit more in depth?
my
Because,
golly.
or is it too deep? Because I have a lot of people that their immediate argument is he's a 30-something time felon. And so
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that
Yeah.
to have that conversation with them.
Yeah, if you look at what happened, the DA and the people in positions to determine what cases go to trial, they all ran, I'm going to get Trump. There's your first clue. Before any charges were filed, before any investigation, that was their platform. That's un-American. That's not your platform. I'm going to find some crime to hook him into. Because if that's true, again, if I'm the DA, I can convict anybody of anything. I'll find something you did wrong. And so that was their goal. They basically took a misdemeanor that the statute of limitations has already run out because he filed applications that didn't quite line up with what they thought they should be in terms of getting bank loans. Now, it's a fact that none of the bankers that loaned money complained that they were cheated or defrauded, not one of them. They all got their money back. So no one lost any money. There was no real crime. We call it malum in se or malum prohibitum. There was no real crime that ever occurred. But the statute of limitations has run out. So what we'll do is we'll try to hook this misdemeanor into a felony, which has never been done before in New York, so we can extend the statute of limitations. And you've got these people that have professed their hatred for Trump and we're going to get them. That's what they did. And they found a judge that was totally, by its own admission, really, in what he did, prejudiced against the defendant, Donald Trump. He evaluated his property in Mar-a-Lago at some ridiculously low level. And I think one of his family members, his daughter, was deep into the Democrat Party, siphoning in and out millions of dollars, which would cause him to recuse himself, but he wouldn't. And then the jury, of course, you're getting a jury from New York. They're voting 80% anti-Republican. They're going to convict on anything you asked them to convict on. And even that had a lot of problems. I predict once it goes up on appeal, ultimately it'll all be overturned. So yes, I'm a convicted felon. Whoop-de-doo. But again, I tell people, okay, I'll grant you he's a convicted felon. That's true. Whether I agree with how it got there or not, that's a different story. It's like people when they say, well, the Supreme Court issued a decision, it's unconstitutional. No, it's not. When they issue a decision, that is constitutional. You may not like it, but don't tell me it's unconstitutional. I had a debate with the president of the ACLU one time, and she said, well, this is the Supreme Court decision, unconstitutional. I chastised her. I said, no, it's not. Who are you to say it's unconstitutional? You don't sit on the Supreme Court. You can tell, and you have a very large audience. You're the president of the ACLU. Stop this nonsense rhetoric. Tell them it is constitutional, but I disagree with it and work to overchange it. You can do that.
Sure.
So I'm not one of these to say, oh yeah, he's not a convicted felon. No, he is a convicted felon. I do not agree with how it got there. That's my personal opinion, but it got there. That said, does that mean that he can't effectively run the country and secure the border and provide lower taxes and retool the military? No. A convicted felon can do all those things. Yeah. There's a lot of people that did stuff in the White House that we know were crimes. They just weren't convicted. And I could look at President Clinton on several counts. I could look at Obama on several counts. I could look at Biden. They just weren't railroaded and brought before a court. But yes, he is a convicted felon, but that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I don't, a convicted felon can do a very good job.
Do you think that what Donald Trump was put through during Biden's administration, do you think that will kind of influence him to not pursue charges on other politicians or other, for example, maybe Anthony Fauci or somebody else?
Yeah, he's already, the best record is look at his past. He could have thrown the book at Hillary Clinton.
Sure.
He didn't. I mean, she had so many violations of federal law in what she did and classified material, caught red-handed. And he hasn't trudged up stuff on Joe Biden. He's for all his bluster, he doesn't hold grudges, really. He doesn't. He's a very strange person. So he's shown great magnanimity towards his enemies that they've never shown towards him.
But do you think a politician owes it to the populace to pursue crimes against people who have committed crimes, or is it a political thing, or is it just his whatever he chooses to do?
Well, yeah, like Jack Smith. I mean, clearly from the record, he didn't pursue that until election time. Where were you pursuing these charges 4 years before? Mm-hmm. And then the insurrection nonsense. Come on, man, give me a break. How many people on January 6th were charged with the federal offense of insurrection? 0. They were charged with trespassing and assault and parading. So when people say it's an insurrection, no one was ever, and that was the Biden administration. If they could have proven the charge of insurrection, they would have taken you to court for insurrection. So stop the insurrection stuff. It was a bunch of knuckleheads that, trespassed, no doubt about it. They committed some crimes, but not an insurrection.
Yeah.
But see, they use these words in the rhetoric, and people listen to it, and they get all spun up because, like you said, it's political power. They want power.
Yeah.
The Democrats will chew on glass to get back in power. That's why the midterm elections coming up, they're hungry to take back power. Whereas a lot of Republicans, they're kind of getting like your cat. We're happy, we're kind of sitting there sleeping, things are going good, we're not going to go out and vote. The Democrats will crawl across glass to vote in the midterms. And when they do, if they take the House, they're going to start all these phony impeachments again. And here we go again with nonsense upon nonsense.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to watch because I agree with you 100%. And it's unfortunate because I feel like I always get frustrated because it's kind of like, why do we have to wait for things to get bad before the other side decides to do something about it? Yeah. And I've made this statement before. If you have the right and the left, and the left pulls very hard, it's like Donald Trump negotiating, right?
Yeah.
If the left pulls real hard and then finally the right decides to pull, they never pull it back to center. They just pull it back a little bit more to the right, but you're still leaning most to the left. The country's still moved to the left.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like that thought. But yeah, you've got to do your civic duty. I mean, and that has to be instilled in children from their parents. You've got to get out and vote. Otherwise, the other side's always at the door. But as seen in the last election, President Trump won the popular vote. He won every swing state. There are a lot of people in this country that still adhere to traditional values. And again, as one of those, I'm very tolerant. You do you. You want to think that way, you want to do that way, I'm all for it. I'll protect your right to be an American. I wore the uniform to do that. I'm not trying to conform you to anything, but I'd like to give you the other side, and you might decide that that's where you want to go. But again, it's not my job. I'm not a crusader.
Yeah.
My job is simply to saw the wood in front of me, but I do know that many conservatives lack a spine.
Right.
They don't want to be called a name. Oh, and the racist is the big race card, and even if you're black, you could be a racist. I've discovered that. Black conservatives are called racist. And so you're a racist, you're a this.
That's a new thing.
Oh, yeah. And so they won't do anything. And I'm not one of those. I mean, you call me what you prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it. You can't.
I think I've said this before, and I think that a lot of us who've grown up in this country and for generations, I feel like we could learn a lot from legal immigrants that have come from other countries who have seen how terrible it is to live in some of these other countries.
Yes.
They're very passionate about this country and what it provides because they understand that. I saw a gentleman, he was an older gentleman, I think he was Cuban, and this was several years ago. He gave a speech somewhere. You may have seen it, but he said, if the U.S. doesn't exist, there's nowhere else for us to go.
Yes.
This is the last place
It is.
for immigrants. Like he was saying, for him, this is the last place for immigrants like me to go. He says, once the U.S. is fallen, there's nowhere else to go.
No, there isn't. Now, maybe another nation will rise up. But yeah, the amazing thing is when a lot of people that come in lawfully and they look around, you go, you mean I can work anywhere I want? I can say what I want to say? I can have 3 jobs? And very quickly, that family elevates itself up into the middle class. And then you have other Americans that have lived here for many, many generations on the welfare dime. They look at them with jealousy. How'd you do that? We worked. Mm-hmm. We got a job.
Yeah.
We actually celebrated the American system of capitalism and freedom. And they're like amazed at what we have. But that's the problem. People they have no gratitude. There's no gratitude. The gratitude gauge is almost on the zero. And yet when you say, well, would you like to go to another Cuba or what? Oh, no, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So they're not oriented, in my opinion, to reality. And the 250th coming back, it's a good time to discover your roots. People, I want what my roots. What are my roots? Our roots are people that had guts. And they're just rich white people that were, half of them are slave owners. Well, if you know anything about rich people, they don't like to risk their money.
Yeah.
When they signed that Declaration of Independence, and a lot of them were evil people, or not evil, a lot of them were flawed humans. All of them are flawed humans. But when they signed that Declaration of Independence, if I was their legal advisor, I'd say, boss, I would think before you sign that, because you're basically putting yourself under the death penalty. Because if you lose this war, you're dead. All your wealth is gone. All your family is washed away. Are you sure you want to sign that document, John Hancock? And a lot of people, they just signed it because they wanted to get richer. I don't know any rich people that would take those odds.
Yeah.
Because you're going up against the strongest military on the face of the planet. Those aren't good odds. I suggest you kind of lay back and let the other people sign it.
Yeah.
But those people had guts. They didn't do it for money. They did it for freedom. Now, is there discrepancies? Of course there are. I like Martin Luther King. One of the greatest things he said, look, that check was written 250 years ago, the freedom part. It's time that we, as Black Americans, cash it in. And but even Martin Luther King, you look at his life, he had a lot of flaws in his personal life. I don't care about that. What did he say? If you judge people, are they perfect or not, you're going to be a very lonely person. Me and my shadow in your closet eating turnips. If you demand perfection from other people, you're a fool.
Yeah.
Are their ideas correct? So when Thomas Jefferson, he owned slaves, we can't listen to anything he says. That's not smart. Now, Jefferson realized slavery was evil, but he didn't want to give up the money. And again, slavery is not an institution that's new to this country. There was slavery in Africa long before any Arabs came over there and engaged in the trade themselves. So every country has a bad past. We've got bad luggage, obviously. Sure. But concentrate on the glass that's half full or 3/4 full. I got that we have bad history and bad things. I got all that. What's the good things? Let's bottle the good stuff and all take a good drink of it. And we're, like I said, we're all familiar. Yeah. You're left, I'm right. We're family. Let's concentrate on the things we can agree on, drink that Kool-Aid, and let's move forward. And maybe we can rediscover our true roots of freedom.
Jeffrey, I think that's a perfect thing to end it on. I appreciate you very much for coming by, and hopefully we can get together again soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Well.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
Yo, Barry.